leaping catch, right corner, touchdown, San Francisco.
He's going to the star. He's going to the star.
He's going to do it again.
Oh, and somebody's coming over.
To tackle him. Look at this.
Oh, no way. George T comes over and hits Terrell Owens.
Usually when there's that much theater, there's not that much substance. And the guy produced.
He was very football savvy, very intelligent. He was a great physical specimen along with that. You really appreciate coaching this guy.
A lot of people have said that I was arrogant, I'm selfish.
They can say what they want to say about me. I can't be stopped.
There are times I may have displayed level of flamboyancy to the point of where people thought I'm not a great teammate, but I'm a very humble person.
He's got it! 15, 10, 5! Touchdown!
He played angry, but he played well.
Owens is behind the defense. He's going to go.
You know, I didn't know anything about being politically correct. And most of the time if we lost or what have you, if I felt like I didn't get involved enough in the game, then that's what I said.
Hey, I ain't hurting the team.
I don't know that I've ever seen Terrell Owens play as poorly as he is today.
He came to me and said, please don't give up on me. Terrell, you're a great player. If you're open, the ball's coming.
Owens! 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 He caught it! He caught it! He caught it! And he makes the winning touchdown catch!
That catch probably established him as one of the big-time players in the league.
He got it! Touchdown!
You could just see his confidence go through the roof.
Goodness gracious heaven!
I feel like I have arrived. Like, this is what being a superstar is like. Just having belief in yourself when others don't have belief in you. And I saw myself playing regardless. Dude, I mean, anybody that knows me, I love me some me.
Because I love me some me. Believe it.
When I got in front of a crowd, I just performed. It's a waste of time to try to explain to somebody who you are when they already have a committed misunderstanding about who you are.
For him, it was always binary. You're with me or you're against me. You know, it makes for great theater, but it also makes for a lot of broken glass. But that's how talented he is. He could have all that broken glass and still be one of the great receivers of all time.
I didn't want to leave, but I didn't feel like they wanted to pay me either.
He and Donovan had this chemistry. You saw it at the Pro Bowls. That helped attract him to Philadelphia.
I played my heart out. I played with the same heartbeat of that city. And I knew how much they wanted me there. I wanted to be there. Maybe if I was the man that I am now, maybe it could have worked out.
The same fans who were livid about him having the audacity to step on that star at midfield, all of a sudden they love him.
Get your popcorn ready.
Who can make a play? I can. Double coverage, it doesn't matter. The guy's a superstar.
He is as close to being unstoppable as any receiver I've seen. He is a force.
Maybe people that have followed my story, have followed my career, can see some inspiration in that.
Can I get a little piece of that? It ain't over here. Okay, that's all I wanted to hear. That's all I wanted to hear.
I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. But when I look back on my life, I see a lot of pain and I see a lot of heartache. But at the end of the day, when I look in the mirror, I see a lot of persistence. I see strength. And I see pride in myself.
I love me some me. Woo! Woo!
So, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for coming. If you didn't know before, I think you do now. So get your popcorn ready. NFL legend Terrell Owens.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
Okay, I think you get a mic. So, hello?
I'm Mike.
Yeah. All right, 42 years old. 42 years old. You haven't played since 2010?
Right, 2000, yeah. 10,
So
11, somewhere
I
in there.
get something on my phone on Monday that
Right.
says Terrell Owens is available to play in the NFL. So tell me.
I never really retired, so
I know that.
so I've been available for a while.
So, tell me how that happened, because a fan tweeted to you, and then all of a sudden the media the internet melted down.
Well, yeah, part of why we're here is we're talking about fan engagement, all those type of things, and so I'm very social media savvy, very engaging with all my fans. You know, from Twitter, obviously Snapchat now, Instagram, Facebook, and so there was, I guess, a correspondent from CSN Philly that tweeted me and just put my name and said, "You ready?" So I just responded, "Available, period." That's all you need these days, and it went viral.
Yeah, so tell us about how it went viral with maybe some of the work you're doing with Mixonium.
Well, yeah, I think, sorry about that. Well, yeah, I'm partnered with a couple of guys in this new platform that we have. It's called Mixonium, and it's basically a platform where you kind of combine all the social media, from Twitter to Snapchat, Instagram. It's almost like a one-stop shop. And with this platform, it's sort of like a dashboard. You can do a number of things with it. I think a lot of the people in here can attest when you talk about way to monetize, advertise. You talk about commerce. These are some of the things that these platforms can be beneficial to somebody like myself. That's so not even just me, but including myself being social media savvy. I've somewhat obviously established a brand for myself. If you've seen from the clip that you have put together so nicely. Again, I've always been about fan engagement. You know, from the time that I stepped onto the field and I realized the talent that I tapped into, and I realized that I could really take it to another level. So the fan aspect of it was really my motivation. When I didn't know that I had the skill set that I did, that was my motivation to get into the end zone, because I knew that in order for me to be somewhat recognized and be considered somewhat of a star, I was in a locker room full of stars. You talk about Jerry Rice, Steve Young, Dana Stubblefield, Ken Norton. I was out of my league. And so in order for me to really enhance my abilities and really progress year in and year out, I had to do something besides catching footballs and really stand behind and be in the shadow of Jerry Rice. So it wasn't an arrogant type of thing. It was something that motivated me within to get into that end zone on every Sunday. And it wasn't until probably like year 2 or 3 when I realized that I had the skill set and talent to be as good as I was. And so now you have these platforms that are constantly coming out, where there's so much fan engagement, and obviously these TV networks are a big part of that. I think within the last 6 to 7 years, you can probably check, you've seen really the decline of some of the viewership from these networks. And it's really due largely to some of the mobile devices and all these tech devices that are being created. So Mixonium is one of those platforms that is user-friendly, that will be able to help everyone really just be hands-on, immediate, easy access to all the media platforms.
Right. I think everyone can just go to Mixonium.com and see the dashboard for yourself and see how easy it is to go into the different channels. Guys, hey, check. Yeah, I just want to give Terrell a plug. I think y'all can go to Mixonium.com. He told me it was like plutonium, mix is in mixing music, Mixonium, right? Download the Connect, and you can see the dashboard for yourself and see how powerful it is to distribute your brand.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's a more engaging and richer messaging, for all the fans and everybody that wants to be involved with it.
Well, it sounds like, Terrell, you're pretty knee-deep in technology. You're well aware of what's going on these days. I've read a lot recently. Sorry, guys. I've been reading a lot recently about how technology is impacting the sport industry, more specifically the Internet of Things. I'll give an example about how at the NFL Scouting Combine, for those of you who are unaware, as college prospects enter the NFL draft, they go and train, and they're essentially graded on their potential prior to the draft. And nowadays, with the Internet of Things, wearable technology, athletes at the NFL Combine are now wearing these type of devices embedded in their training gear. So these type of devices will measure speed, agility, power, mobility. It'll also measure your health and your fitness levels, as well as how to prevent your injuries. Nobody's going to commit to a prospect that has potential problems with his knees. So I'd be interested to hear about how things have changed from when you broke onto the scene. I don't want to say when, but but that said, a lot has changed since your rookie season to where we are nowadays. And remember, he's available, folks. So he might.
Yeah, my rookie season was 1996, so it's fine. Again, you mentioned some of the wearable technology. You think about Fitbit and all these other devices that people are using to really even if it's self-motivated for self-awareness. You have a lot of people that go to gyms that are trying to be in the best shape possible. So fitness is very big in the community now, where being in shape, being healthy, and when an athlete gets involved and you want to really enhance your abilities, these are things to really progress and really get on the football field or whatever your sport is to try to perform at a higher level. These are some of the things that will allow coaches, trainers to really monitor the progress of the particular athlete. So I think it's come a long ways. I think if I've done some cutting edge things, back in the day, with my health and how I was able to play as long as I did, with some of the people that I was associated with. But had I had the technology available for me at that time, there's no telling how long I would have played. But again, when you talk about the doctors and these physicians that are utilizing some of these devices, I mean, it creates a safer environment. You think about, obviously I think there's maybe a lawsuit or something going on with Fitbit that declares, the accuracy of a heartbeat. So, you have to be careful when you really put that out there because, things like that when it comes to health, there's a number of deaths that have, that has happened across the league, not even just the league, but just in high school in general. With heart problems. So these are some of the things that the wearable technology that can prevent some of these things from happening. So I'm very an advocate for that. Obviously into fitness and health and wellness. So I think all these things have a specific and particular place in the marketplace.
And that was actually leading into my next question for you was I was going to ask you particularly, are there any type of devices that you use, whether it be fitness or any other type of IoT devices?
Not anything in particular, but I am involved. I just had a couple of meetings, I think back in a couple of months ago. There's a new device coming out that's more accurate than Fitbit that monitors your heartbeat. It's called Self, CELF. I think they just went public not too long ago. So this is something again that I will be trying to integrate. I have a clothing line called Prototype 81. So with my clothing line, there will be different levels of fashion. I mean, I'll have active wear, performance, and then I'll have some higher fashion, higher end pieces within my line. So with the performance aspect of my line, we're talking about integrating that technology into my clothing.
So let's go back to the fan experience. So as the fans join the conversation, right, during the games and so forth, how do you think that's affected or has it affected kind of the purity of the game? What do the players think about that? As far as fans being able to reach out and tweet at you and talk to you, and how does that affect you as a player?
I mean, I think it has that. The effect where a fan really feels a part of what that athlete is doing on an everyday basis. I think that was something right as I exited the league. Twitter, MySpace, these are some of the most prominent things that were out that we were engaging with the fans with. And now you have so many other platforms. And what a lot of people really don't know, that everybody talks about Instagram and Snapchat, but Facebook really has more fans and more following than any of those probably combined. So I realized that kind of early on. You think about what Ashton Kutcher really did, getting behind something like Twitter and really starting engaging, because I didn't really have an idea of what was going on, and I set up an account And then I realized that my fan base was just as large as some of these other guys. And so it's a great way to experience. And I think now the platforms that we have, athletes have more of a voice. You think about some of the issues that are going on and how journalists like to spin and misconstrue and take out of context a lot of information, and even in interviews. And honestly, I think this would have been beneficial for me, because there was a number of times where some of the things that I said got taken out of context. Taken out of context. So I definitely could have benefited, from some of these now most prominent platforms, for sure.
And also, touching on some differences in the game nowadays with instant replay, I think back to a team you played for, the Dallas Cowboys, several years ago. Des Bryant, one of the better receivers in the NFL nowadays, he made a miraculous catch in a playoff game that was overturned, and it's almost taking the human element and the purity out of the game. So I guess there are some good things about technology and how it's affecting sports. But that said, if you're a fan of the Cowboys and the call's reversed and you're exiting the playoffs early, you're not so much of a fan of the technological breakthroughs in sports.
Well, I mean, it's not 100%. It's not foolproof. But again, sometimes, with the referees, I mean, we try to take the real life human element, instantaneous decisions out of the game. And you would think that, going to technology would prove otherwise but in that case, it didn't. So again, the rules are kind of tricky. So, like you said, if you're a Cowboys fan, you're very upset about that play, and if you're on the opposite, you're happy. But at the same time, technology is where the world is going and where we are right now. And again, there's no telling what's on the horizon. But I can tell you that obviously the things that I'm involved with, especially Mixonium, this is kind of like the next best thing that's out there. And I think that's what's so unique about Mixonium, because it's a dashboard and it's user friendly. You think about mashup, and you get on your phone and you get all these apps. You want to put it all in one little area where you can have easy access to it, and that's what Mixonium is about. And again, there's so many benefits to it. Like I said, you talk about monetization, you talk about advertising, and the commerce aspect of it. The sky is the limit.
Sure. Yep. Yeah, so I feel like we're all very excited to hear how, like I said earlier, knee deep into technology. But I know we've probably got some 49er fans in this room. I mean, we're right down the road from from San Francisco, so maybe a little bit. So you probably have cheered this guy plenty of time on the sidelines, or from the fans and from your living room. And from the video we saw prior to you entering, we were reminded of one of the greater plays in 49er history, now referred to as the catch two. And for drama purposes, I'll tell a quick story as we to summarize what we saw. But Steve Young fades back with seconds left to play, spots arguably the best receiver in the NFL, tick tock, lofts one up in the end zone, and Terrell climbs the ladder, comes down with the ball, all the while taking a couple shots because he threw definitely into double coverage. And sure enough, lands in the end zone, secures the ball, secures the touchdown, and secures one of the more memorable playoff wins in 49er history. But that said, it wasn't a typical Terrell Owens day at the office, where earlier in the game you had some uncharacteristic drops, which it happens in life. But I'm interested to hear your side of the story from the play, the game itself, as well as, look, we're all human. It's human nature to not be 100% and not be on your game every day of the week. So we all face adversity, but it's a matter of how you rise to the occasion and how you overcome. So you as an athlete playing on the grandest stage, I'm interested to hear how you rise to the occasion despite battling adversity.
Yeah, I think if you go back to the cliche of it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And, as you mentioned, throughout the course of the day, I think leading up to that game, I had never really played in a playoff game up to this magnitude, and I put a lot of pressure on myself, and I think a lot of athletes do that, even though they say they don't. But I understood, the history of us in Green Bay, the tradition that the 49ers had established, prior to me even being there, and going into this game, Steve Young had this said monkey on his back, and so across the way you have Brett Favre, arguably, could be one of the best quarterbacks in this league. And we have Steve Young, and I'm playing alongside, some great receivers. You talk about Jerry Rice and Brent Jones, J.J. Stokes, and I was really, like I said, that was the beginning of who I became that day. So it wasn't the best day ever. Again, I put a lot of pressure on myself. I tried to concentrate as much as I could. I've never had a coach tell me to concentrate and watch the ball all the way in and you'll catch it, and I did that and I still dropped it. But it was one of those days where, some unfortunate things happened. One of the passes that Steve Young threw to me, I was wide open, and just so happened the way the end zone that we were going into, the ball went right into the sun and I lost it. That was a drop, could have been an easy touchdown. But again, it was one of those things, as I alluded to in that NFL film clip, is that I've always put a lot of pride in my ability, and I always had that belief in myself, no matter what the situation. And throughout life, I know I haven't been the most perfect person. That's whether it's business or personal. And, life is parallel to football is somewhat of a parallel to life sometimes. And when I look back on that game, that was definitely a moment in history that will definitely go down as one of the most memorable moments for not only myself, but a number of 49er fans that happened to be able to witness, that playoff game that day. So I can't be thankful enough for Steve Young. He's definitely one of the better quarterbacks that I played with. I get that question all the time: who's the best quarterback that you ever played with? And again, I will say, I know people have heard me say different names, and I say that because I never really got the chance to play with Steve Young the entirety of my career, or the tenure or the time that Jerry Rice was able to play. Jerry Rice didn't have a drop-off in talent when it came to quarterbacks. I mean, he went from Joe Montana, and then you go to Steve Young. I'm like, I mean, come on. So for me, I just had to adjust my game to every quarterback that I played with. And I think if anybody looks on my career and you listen to what I just said, I really had to do that. I just didn't have one great quarterback. I had a number of quarterbacks that had different playing styles. Arguably, Steve Young, best that will go down in history, quarterbacks in the league. But I played with Elvis Gerbach. I played with Jeff Garcia. Then I went over and I played with Donovan McNabb. I played with Tony Romo. These are all quarterbacks that had different styles. Ryan Fitzpatrick. Jeff Brom, he was here. I mean, again, if you think about it, like, I played with a lot of different quarterbacks with different styles. So I had to adjust my game. They had enough pressure, themselves, just, being a backup and really trying to establish themselves as the next quarterback. So I understood their job. They probably had enough pressure on themselves. So I really had to adjust my game to really make them make me look good, and I had to make them look good as well. So I really prided myself in the offseason to do everything in my power, knowing that, Jerry Rice was at some point he was going to leave, and I had to fulfill his shoes. So the quarterbacks, you talk about Romo and what he's done throughout his career. Now it's almost like he's in a similar situation as the changing of the guard. He has a guy, Dak Prescott, that's probably going to take over his job, but he's itching to get back. But injuries are definitely inevitable. It's part of the game. But what I've been able to do is really just believe in myself. For a lot of people out there that don't know anything about where I grew up, Alexander City, Alabama, went to not really a small school, but we were 6A, which was pretty big football-wise. But I never envisioned or thought I was going to play beyond the collegiate level. So when I went to UT Chattanooga, I really had no idea where I was going. If anybody has read my book, I thought I was going to UT Knoxville. So that shows you how clueless I was to football. So again, my freshman year, I didn't really play a whole lot. I broke my collarbone, and then I was out. It was too late in the season for me to get a medical red shirt, so that was a year wasted. So I just went home, the summer of my going into my sophomore year, And I did whatever I could to become bigger, faster, and stronger, because I realized everybody that was around me, they were that much more talented than I was, and I knew that. So I had to do whatever I could. You know, there was no technology back then to help me with to help me then. So it was just really me grinding it out in the weight room, and I was, you know, doing everything that I could to become a better player. And I played a number of sports. I mean, from baseball, I ran track. So those are the things that helped me with football.
Right. So I got one more question, and maybe we can open it up to the audience. So speaking of broken bones and being dedicated, right? When you played for the Eagles, 2004, pretty drastic injury in December, high ankle sprain and broken fibula.
It was broken fibula.
Yeah, so that would have put most guys out for the rest of the season, considering it wasn't the final weeks of the season. Eagles go on to make the Super Bowl. They play my Patriots. I say it. But
that's why
but you played in that game, and you caught 9 balls for 122 yards. So let's talk about, you know, what happened between December and getting yourself ready for the game and how you did it, because it was miraculous.
Well, yeah, as I mentioned, alluded to earlier, I talked about cutting edge things, and I'm sure if you haven't heard of the hyperbaric chamber, that's what I was introduced to through some homeopathic guys that lived in the Atlanta area. And so throughout the course of my career and during the course of the week, even from San Francisco to Philly, these are guys that, you know, at the end of the week, they came in, they flew in, and they adjusted me, and they took care of my body, whatever my needs were, in a legal way. So just got to put that out there. Got to put that out there. Exactly. So, yeah, hyperbaric chamber, it worked wonders for me. And you talk about electronic stimulation. You talk about manipulation of fascia, tissue. These are the things that and the people that I was surrounding myself with, because during the course of the game, I mean, there are so many bumps and bruises that you have, you know, with your body, and some people have described, you know, being tackled or head-on collisions. They've described as being in a car accident. Sure. So we go through a lot, and so for me, I did whatever I could to be able to play and be there for my team on Sundays. And, you know, throughout that course, from I think mid-December to Super Bowl time, when I got tackled from behind, which is now illegal. Yeah, which is called the horse collar rule. I had surgery the next day. I didn't realize that I had a break in my leg till the next day until I got an MRI. I went home that night after the game. Well, I remember, I can take you through the play. I caught the ball and I went to go turn upfield up the left sideline, and that's when Roy grabbed me from behind. And when I went down, he grabbed me. My leg got caught underneath me, and I heard a snap. And so when I laid on the ground, I immediately said to myself, I just broke my ankle. I mean, it was that defiant of a snap. And so I waited till the trainers got to me and they asked me what happened. And I was like, man, I broke my ankle. And they were like, can you get up? And I'm like, I don't know. And so I end up whatever it was, I didn't want to be carted off. Right. That's one of those macho things for football.
You ran off the field.
That's one of those macho things for football players. You never want to be carted off, you know. So I just, whatever energy I had in my body, whatever it was, I got up and I walked off the field. And even the doctors, with the severity of the injury that they diagnosed, they was like, dude, I don't know how you got up and walked off with this type of injury. But I got off, and I went home. They iced it. I remember I couldn't sleep that night because my leg kept aching. And so the next day I went in to get an MRI. The radiologist asked me what was going on. And I told him, I was like, yo, I'm feeling the pain here. So that's when he realized that there was a break, along with I tore all the ligaments in my ankle. So I had literally maybe a month or so to get ready for the Super Bowl. So I immediately had surgery the next day. I remember going to Baltimore. On the way back, my trainer met me there. I'm in the limo, I'm doing an interview. They asked me if I was going to be ready for the Super Bowl, and I told them, I vowed to my teammates on air that if they got to the playoffs and they got to the Super Bowl, that I would be there. And so for me, I was exercising a higher being. We all have people that, you know, we feel like, you know, we can talk to when need be. And so for me, growing up in the South, faith was a big thing for me. And so I really had, and at that time, I relied on my faith that I would be back knowing the odds were against me. So throughout the whole course of the rest of the season, throughout the playoffs, that was the #1 story, was I going to play in the Super Bowl?
And it was a heck of a performance, so nobody's ever questioned your physical or your mental toughness for sure. All right.
So I have one more question. It's kind of a fanboy question. So I apologize. You're going to the audience, so I'm pretty much one of them, at least in this role. So in any case, we've talked about Terrell Owens, the sensational athlete, the 6-time Pro Bowler, legend, eventual Hall of Famer, and it's going to happen sooner than later. I promise you that. But I have a question, because entertainment's always very much important to you. We know Terrell the player, but we also know Terrell the showman, the entertainer, Terrell the brand, and T.O., the innovator of the end zone celebration. We know the pom-poms, we know the Sharpie, the popcorn, and the infamous Dallas Star incident that we saw. I want to know, and I'm sure a lot of folks would want to know as well, do you have any personal favorites that stood out?
I mean, when people, you know, say my name and they think about celebrations, the #1 thing people talk about is a Dallas Star.
Right.
Again, I'm very creative.
That was creative.
So I think one of the things that really stick out in my mind is I'm very impromptu as well. Some things are a little choreographed and some aren't. The touchdown when I did the pom-poms, that was definitely impromptu, because I had no idea what was happening at that time. I didn't realize I was going to score, but I kind of caught the ball and I dragged the guy into the end zone, and I just happened to see some Gold Rush girls and some pom-poms, so I just, oh, here, let's do it. And so, but yeah, so the Ray Lewis dance, that was a little choreographed. I mean,
Ravens fan.
Yeah, so sorry about that. But yeah, I mean, I just like to, I like to have fun. And so I understood that, you know, fans that work all week, you know, you talk about the blue collar people, especially when you talk about Philly fans, you know,
sure.
They're very, very passionate. I've played in on some teams and some cities where the fans are very, very passionate. Here, Philadelphia, and the Dallas Cowboys. So for me, I understood that throughout the course of the week, you know, people work all week. There's no telling what's going on, the ups and downs, life. And then Sunday, that's their outlet. Right. So for me, I wanted to really give fans, you know, something to cheer about. And that was something that I really wasn't able to do when I was in high school, because I really didn't play. So being just one of maybe 90 to 100 guys on a high school team, and you're not really playing on Friday nights, driving up to the stadium, and again, we're 6A, so we had like literally 90 to 100 guys on our football team. Wow. So there's only 11 that can play on offense and 11 to play on defense, and I really wasn't one of those 11. So to ride that bus, a couple of buses, to the stadium, and you start to see the stadium, you smell the popcorn, the hamburgers, and to really just sit there on a Friday night and watch everybody else, you know, score touchdowns and bring everybody to their feet, that was something that inspired me. So that was something, when I got to this level, to the professional level, it was something that I really wanted to do. And I did not want to take advantage of the opportunity that I had. And San Francisco afforded me the opportunity to do that. And really, when I was in college playing with UT Chattanooga, I didn't realize, again, that I had the skill set that I did. You know, I played a sport where I was somewhat decent at. And then I just kept working and working and working, and I eventually got better to the point of I was able to have a couple of coaches mentor me, and you know, it didn't hurt to be in a locker room with one of the greatest of all time, Jerry Rice. I mean, to share the same breathing area, personal space with one of the greatest. That was it meant the world to me. And so I understood that, you know, coming from a small town, having a mom that worked 2 and 3 jobs, a grandmother that pretty much did the same thing, I wanted to give back to them. And so with all that I've been able to do and the league has allowed me to do, enabled me to do. I've been able to not only support my family, but even give back to the community. So that's what really kind of what it's all about. And I think sometimes they get lost in who I am and my character because of some of the things that I displayed, on the football field. And so when you watch that piece, there was sometimes it did get under my skin a little bit when my character was misconstrued or it was portrayed in a negative light, because I knew that deep down on the inside that wasn't who I was. But on the football field, when my college coach described it, I think around in my junior, senior year, and he talked to some of the scouts and he told them, he's like, I don't know what it is about this kid. He's like, when the lights come on, he's a showman. I mean, he performs. And so that's kind of, that's kind of how it was for me. And I think early on as a kid, I was a big fan of Michael Jackson. I won a couple of Michael Jackson contests, when I was little. I'm giving you guys a little history here. But that was some of the things that I was a fun-loving kid. But I think a lot of that, again, nobody gets to know that part of who I am because of how the media portrayed me. And again, as I mentioned, there's a lot of things I could have done differently because I've matured, and then the lack of maturity at that age, I wish I could go back and do some things differently. But that's all part of growing up in the maturation process. And so, again, I'm proud of what I've been able to accomplish, not knowing that, again, I never thought I would play beyond the collegiate level.
Thank you.
Can we take a few questions?
And don't be shy.
Sure.
Dancing with the Stars.
I don't know. They've been soliciting my services for the last 2 to 3 years, so I'm not sure. I got a kick out of watching some of the guys go out there and perform, and again, I mean, there's a number of talent that is going on, and I realize that if Buzz Aldrin can go out there and cut a rug, then I can too. So it's a fun show.
Do you have any intention to start a technology company? Because you are a technology-oriented football star field.
Start, no, but being a part of some, absolutely. The one that I mentioned earlier at the top of the segment is called Mixonium. Again, that's definitely, like I said, to me, it's the best next new thing. Again, once they pitched the idea and I grasped the understanding of what it could do, I definitely jumped on board. So I really understand where technology is going, and especially, again, it's all about the fan engagement and the fan experience. I think when you can bring fans closer to the action as possible, that's when you get a lot of traction, you get a lot of action.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And all that you've done on and off the field, what's your proudest accomplishment?
My proudest? Man, that's.
Yes, what is Terrell's proudest accomplishment?
Man, I don't know. I think maybe just for me, I think being able to provide for my family. I think that was probably the first and foremost thing. I think any athlete, especially coming out of the urban community, because a lot of us, we don't have the typical mom and dad in the household. So it's either we grew up in there's a lot of us that grew up in single family homes. And so that's one of the things that that motivates us, is really taking care of home first for the people that have taken care of us throughout our adult years and younger years. Mm-hmm. And it just I'm doing a little bit of commentating or analyst work, and it goes back to what I was saying about me not really thinking I was going to play beyond the collegiate level, is that I'm not really into football like that. I played a sport where I kind of realized and tapped into my skill set and talent and saw that I was pretty good at it, and I just made the most of it. So as far as me going on TV talking about X's and O's, that's not really my passion. My passion now is really into what I'm doing now, and I think that's my clothing line, and part of that is due largely to my mom being a seamstress when she was growing up. What I'm doing now, she wanted to do. She's kind of living vicariously through me, because there are things that I've done she wanted to be she wanted to go into the fashion business in the industry. She wanted to be on TV. She wanted to model. And again, having me at the age of 17, I can't imagine me having a kid at 17. So my grandmother had to raise me, and while she worked, a couple of jobs just to make ends meet. So that's kind of why I'm proud of, what I've been able to accomplish to really kind of provide for them, because now with my clothing line, this is something that she wanted to do. So that's, these are some of the reasons why I'm doing some of the things that I'm doing.
I have one more question. What do you do to stay in shape?
I eat right. Nutrition is definitely a big key and part of, the way that I look, and really kind of the reason that I was able to play as long as I did. And so again, with technology and all these platforms where you have a number of people, they're not even famous, but they're becoming famous because of these social media platforms that realize, fan engagement and things, to benefit, themselves is really kind of where we are in this world. And so nutrition is a big part of your well-being. It's staying healthy. And so what I've been able to do since I haven't been playing is I don't lift as much as I did during my playing days, but I haven't ballooned 20 to 30 pounds like some of my colleagues have, but it's because I eat right. I understand the value of nutrition. And so again, with these, these platforms, these networks, these are places where people can obviously educate themselves on eating healthier and living better lives.
Being a Giants fan.
They call me the Giant Killer. When I go through New York, that's what they call me. They say, "You're the Giant Killer." I'm sure you New Yorkers are.
So that was my question. What stadium did you despise going to the most and why? Not despise, but which one drove you crazy?
No, it wasn't a stadium that I really despised. I mean, I welcomed the environment because really kind of that inspired me, to really play it at my best. Because I knew that, the defensive coordinators, I knew throughout the course of the week that I was one of those guys that they needed to stop in order to win the game. So all of that went into my preparation, every year, because I knew every year there was going to be a different challenge that I had to face. And so going into all these great stadiums, I mean, even with you talk about technology, you think about what Jerry World has down there. I mean, it is absolutely a beauty. With what he's been able to do with that place. And, they say nobody really watches the actual field. Everybody's watching the monitor, the big screens. But I early on in my career, the Carolina Panthers, they had one of the newer stadiums, and I loved to play in that stadium for whatever reason. I don't know if it was the grass, but it was just something about that environment that I like to play in. Again, anytime I can play on true natural grass, which is good, especially low cut, I felt very, very explosive. Again, you think, I didn't like to play in cold weather. It probably didn't look like it, but that was one of the things that I did not like to do.
You went to Buffalo.
I went to Philly and Buffalo, right. But it was something that I had to get used to.
Cincy too.
Yeah, I'll tell you a short story. I know after my rookie year, this was like the first time I ever got to play in Lambeau Stadium. And my rookie year, I think it was, I don't know how cold it was, but I could barely feel my hands. And I did not want to play in that game. And so Tom Rathman, who was the running back coach, and so they make evaluations after the season. So this particular game, I didn't have a great game, but I can remember vividly Steve Young throwing me the ball. But even before I ran out for the route, I was like, "Steve, don't throw the ball to me. Don't throw the ball to me." I'm like, my hands are freezing. And sure enough, I run my route and I look around and Steve is throwing me the ball. And so I had a couple of drops in that game. And so you talk about what Hard Knocks does, and you see what goes on behind the scenes of evaluating players. So way back when, back in '96, they didn't have all of that. So he told me a short story. He goes, "Yeah," he's like, "we drafted you, but he's like, we didn't know if we were going to keep you because we knew playing in cold weather was not your thing after having a couple of drops." So that's why I tell you, sometimes I had to motivate myself to really get out there and play in that cold weather. But I knew that if I was going to be a part of the team and I really wanted to play well, I had to get used to those elements. coming from, Alabama, we have a little cold weather, but not to that extreme. Who's it? Okay.
What are the 3 top attributes you've leveraged from your football, your clothing line, your technology innovation?
That's a good question. An easy answer for you is I speak to a lot of kids, either one-on-one or I have people that are asking me to come speak at small engagements or high schools. And when I reflect on my career, and even with what I'm doing with my clothing line, and obviously now delving off into technology, I call it the 3 Ds. That's desire, dedication, and discipline. With anything, and everybody can probably attest to this, everybody has a desire to do something. That's something that, it's a no-brainer. Everybody has a desire. But to get to that next level, there has to be a commitment to dedication and discipline. And that's what enabled me to be as good as I was on the football field, because I did stuff that the guys weren't really thinking about, and I was receptive to that. When you talk about cutting-edge technology, you're talking about cutting-edge homeopathic ideas of keeping your body healthy. These are things that I was receptive to, and I think when you talk about some of these colleges, these universities, their strength and conditioning programs are sometimes their weight rooms, their facilities are better than the pros, which seems backwards. But when you come across people that are very knowledgeable about certain things, and I realize this too, working with my own team of people, that the head trainers, they can be territorial at times. And so when you have somebody that's receptive, which the guy was in Philadelphia Eagles, Rick Burkholder, when I told him about the team of people that I had working on me throughout my career here in San Francisco, and I wanted to bring them and keep them on board, with my training and stuff in Philadelphia, he was all for it. But, I didn't really want to tinker with that so much, because I experienced a little pushback here in San Francisco with the head trainers there, because again, when your job is kind of threatened by somebody, then like I said, you get a little pushback, but you have to be a little receptive, to cutting edge. That's whether it's again technology, health-based, everything. So that's it: desire, dedication, and discipline.
All right. So I have a third question for you. So who are the top 3 cornerbacks that were your toughest?
Number one, I'd probably say would be Aeneas Williams. He played for the Rams, and I say that because he was one of the bigger corners, and I was a big receiver, and so it was almost kind of like a man on man. All of it was man on man, but he was one of the bigger corners that I had to contend with, twice a year, and even sometimes in the playoffs. So he's one. Obviously, Champ Bailey, and I think Charles Woodson. So these, again, like I said, I talk about these guys. Maybe aside from Champ Bailey, these were guys that were, 6 foot and over, and so sometimes it posed a problem for some of the smaller guys. But I had to sometimes impose my physical abilities with them. But in order to really progress and become who I became, is I had to really change my game a little bit, because obviously the physical part was there, but I had to add a little finesse to my game as well. So I had to do a number of things throughout the course of the off season to help with my fast twitch muscles. So I had to do some things with my footwork, my handwork. These were things that I did. I hadn't really realized that I hadn't had that exposure to at the smaller Division I school, like Chattanooga. So when you talk about Division I, Division II, the talent kind of weeds itself out. And so when you get to the pros, everybody's pretty much as good. And so I had a lot of catching up to do, from my rookie year on. Yeah.
So you picked 3 great teams, right? What was it like going back and playing against your former teammates and going back to the stadium?
It was fun. It was fun for me because, the only thing changed, was my address. So in the uniform, my talent level, that wasn't going to change. If anything, it was going to bring out the best of me, especially because I knew the guys in the other locker room, they saw it on an everyday basis. So I'm sure they were pretty much more nervous than I was. You know, I talked to a number of guys sometimes throughout the season, or even after, you know, during the summertime, and, you know, on opposing teams, and they told me that, you know, I would be the #1 topic, you know, for people to stop when it came to their defense. So I prided myself to be that. So once I realized, like I said, you know, the skill set that I possessed, and understanding, you know, playing with Jerry, and then utilizing everything that I kind of saw, you know, firsthand, and then incorporating my own abilities to the field, you know, the game became easy. I worked probably harder in practice, and I'm sure my coaches have said this. I worked harder in practice. I treated practice as almost like games. So I tried to put myself in a game-type situation. And I mentally had to really teach myself to do that instead of just going to practice like, you know, sometimes like, you know, everybody on the weekend, you got to go through the weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you got Monday coming, you're like, oh gosh, Monday. But I really treated, you know, every day, you know, like it was a game, my practices. And so that's why sometimes games, you know, it seems easy, but it's really not. But it's that preparation that enabled me to really perform at the level that I did. Thank you. I'm single too.
I have colleagues back at the office that have your raffle tickets posted in their queues.
Oh boy.
So,
thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you. I appreciate it. Oh. Yeah, oh, okay, yeah.
She puts a lot of pressure on herself. And it's almost like, I know I said, Mom, you never competed a day in your life. But I just felt for 30 years.
Right, and it's sometimes it's hard if you haven't really played a sport to really explain, you know, to somebody that hasn't really been in that level of competition, what it's like. You know, I have a son, and, you know, he's 17 now, and, you know, his mom hasn't really played a sport in her life, and so not being with him on an everyday basis, it's hard to really articulate or really be there for him and give him the right information when he has no one to turn to. I'm always available, but sometimes that firsthand information, he has nobody to turn to but his mom, and so as moms are, they get very involved with kids and sports, and so it's something that you just have to be patient with. And I think, you know, for your daughter, you know, #1, she has to believe in herself first and foremost. I think, you know, there are times where some people don't believe in you, and you have no other choice but to believe in you. And I think that's what I was able to do, because I wasn't highly recruited coming out of high school, and I got drafted, you know, in the 3rd round, you know, going into the pros. So that's not very, very good. So I realized that I had to take advantage of the opportunities that were given me. And so, you know, just tell her to just keep being persistent, keep working hard, and when you prepare yourself and that opportunity arises, you'll be ready for it. So that's what you always have to do. You have to stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
I think we're about to wrap up. So one more round of applause for Mr. Terrell Owens there.